And now for something completely different.
Oh, if you can't figure out what the this is, obviously this video is about building the warp nacelles. I'm actually kind of looking forward to this part, only because it's not so many pieces, and it's not too intricate. But you know, there's so many different lighting things that has to be done. So here's my plan going forward. So as far as this piece here is where I'm going to do the majority of my lighting. So let's talk about this right here. There's a piece of glass, that kit glass, that goes for it. It's usually a warm white light that just kind of illuminates through there. So I'm going to end up doing that. I'm going to probably have to build my own little type of light block so it doesn't like I don't know what else it could really interfere with, really. Probably because maybe the chiller grill, so I'll probably just do that. Try to keep that separated. Up in here there's like supposed to be like a warp crystal or something similar to the impulse crystal. It's a little blue one. That one's going to have to be light blocked, but that one's easy just from the inside. Of course, you're going to have two spots here, one here and one on the other piece, which lights up the kind of the edge of the saucer. Back here, I'm going to do the only Raytheons is really just for the tail of both of the nacelles. Would be kind of dumb if I just did one. And of course the strip lighting I'm going to put up here. I plan on having my chiller grills, my warp chiller grills, blue instead of violet. Not violet. It'll be pretty violent, all right. Violet. If you want to do violet, go ahead. The way I want to go about it though is I'm not going to use blue strip lighting. I'm going to be using the double density bright white. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the chiller grills and I'm going to diffuse it. I'm going to just sanding it on both sides, because the outside of it has to be painted anyway, so it kind of has to be roughed up. And on the inside is where I'm going to do the diffuser for the light. There are 5 thin channels. That's where the light is supposed to go through, and the masking for it is on here. But if you don't have it, you can also get this 1/32 inch tape, and that'll work. That fits in there just as well. But then I'm just going to use my blue Tamiya, and I'll just paint the inside of here. I'll do a couple, tests on how many passes it needs to go till I'm actually happy with it. But I need to have the strip light in here, and this kind of almost in place but not glued in, just to get the right depth that I'm looking for, the right blue hue that I'm looking for. I could probably paint the strip light in there, but I may also do that too. It just depends. It ain't going to hurt anything. But speaking on the Raytheon here, I'm going to end up having to block off the lighting from in here, from that, because the light leak will just come out and affect this end of the chiller grill. So what I already pre-did was took a thin piece of poly. Well, first I did like scrap cardboard, and I started like cutting little notches out till I can get a fit, on how I want it. And I did it on both sides, and I just taped it together and sandwiched it. So I got like a rough cutout of this, and then I just traced it on a piece of polystyrene. And then it's pretty much going to be, kind of like a shadow box or a light box. I pretty much made 4 of them, one for each of them. I'm sure you're asking, like, you know, why not just use the one? Well, because it's not a perfect, totally perfect fit on the inside. It's kind of rough, but it'll have some, you know, still some gaps. And that's also potential light leak, so I would have to glue it in and fill it. But if I did that and I popped the other piece on there, I'm not going to be able to fill the other side. So I just made 2. I made one for each end, so that way I could just put it on where it fits and it just let it overlap onto each other. So it just gives it a little more extra, just, you know, extra light leak protection. And this is probably the only piece, I'm not going to guarantee it, that I'm going to have to use both of my adhesion promoters. Of course, I have the gray and I have the clear. I'm going to have to use the clear on this end on both sides just because, well, I don't want to light block. I can't light block over here really, other than just where it's got to go. But over here I could use my gray stuff, which kind of helps with a little bit of light blocking. But everything from here forward would be light blocked in black, and over here I've just got to, you know, make a mask off a area and then just airbrush around it to give it that fade look. We'll get into that when we get to that. Of course, I got all my pieces ready for it. Of course, somehow that fell out. I don't know how that fell out. So I guess the first thing to do, well, obviously the first thing to do is kind of get this stuff prepped. I'm thinking, well, that's the thing, you know, what direction do I want to go? Well, I guess we're going to find out right after these commercial messages, again, from Planned Parenthood and your local Baptist church, and I don't know, maybe some WWE or something. I don't know. And your local news, too. All right, right back. Well, what I decided to do is actually go ahead and make my little light block barrier from the Raytheon lighting. So let me see, this one matches this one. Okay. So this is kind of like how I got it set up. And the reason why I made a notch here is because as I was like thinking when you overlap, see, I kind of glued it to the edge of the post here. But it would not, obviously it's not going to slip in because, heck, I already glued it to the post. So, and, I mean, you could probably just cut half and half, but there's still a chance that you'll actually get some type of a leak. So, in this case, I just cleaned this part out, so at least these will flip and overlap this. But the only issue that I kind of found when I put together is like there's just a little bit of a opening over here. That may be something I'll have to deal with. Or I just may put another piece on this backside here just to block it out. I don't even think it may be that necessary too much. But it gives me something other than nothing. And, also because, you know, trying to actually cut out the exact shape of this is kind of hard unless you have one of those those multi-needle looking scribe tool things that shows you the shape of any weird curves and whatever. I don't have one, so like I said, I had to get a rough cut and start taking little nips out till I got pretty close. But of course there would still be a little bit gappage. I just went ahead and used hot glue just to fill in, only because you'll never see this, and it's cheap. It's super cheap. So, and for some of the gap sizes, it's pretty thick. So I went ahead and used that route, and like I said, you'll never see it anyways. So that's where these are at. So I think what I'll end up doing right now is start dealing with the adhesion promoter, the half and half, and maybe prep the chiller grills for also adhesion promoter. So yeah, I guess that's what I'll do. So to get you caught up on what I've actually kind of started to do, I kind of have no real plan exactly. Right now I'm just kind of go as I feel. So, worked on basically the warp nacelles, light block the inside, and obviously you see back here it's black. I just have I painted it with basically a piece of tape, on the inside, just a rough oversized area. It will get ovaled out with my airbrush in black to make the like the edge of the shadow and effect of a Raytheon effect. Of course, like you see here, it's basically the plastic white here to the adhesion promoter primer gray. This already has the adhesion promoter clear on it on this side, so that way the other paint work. The base coat on here, I gotta be careful. I gotta just do a light base coat on this half and just make sure it's all good before I, just only because, if I keep going layers and layers and layers of thick base coat, it could actually end up light blocking itself. So that's where that's at. I did it with, of course, all the pieces, kind of same thing. Got a little bit of the overspray on here, so I'm just going to take like 800, just lightly clean that up. So that's where those stand. I also have been working on the chiller grills. I did my sand and diffuse on both sides, and I sprayed this side here with just my light block in black, the outside, even though it's going to get its dark color anyways. One thing I did try to do, I tried to mask out in between the ribs with both sizes of the supplied masking for it, and tell you the truth, I had a hell of a time just trying to get them to stay in, let alone twist, and basically I just kind of gave up on it. So I just went back to the old scraping method, just remove the paint, and I used my favorite dental pick motherfucking tool. Good thing is though, one end of it, the tip broke off a while back, so it's a little bit thicker than the one end, but it happens to be the exact width inside between each chiller grill. So all I did was just basically scrape the paint out, just stayed within the groove. This one hasn't been done. This one has. I don't know if I got an easy light to show you. I don't know if this is going to help, but obviously you can kind of see through it. But believe me, it's what it should be. So this is how I do it. This one hasn't been done. So I kind of start with my thinner part, because for some reason when it gets down to the ends over here, the chiller grills kind of squeeze in. So I kind of just scrape a little bit of it out just to get it started. The middle ones ain't really as bad for the thicker ends. It's just over here. And the thing is, because I'm doing this scrape method, I'm pretty much going to have to do it throughout this whole thing, between each coat of color and whatever I decide to paint on it. Just because it'll just make it easier to remove paint, other than a thick glob of everything already done. And I don't need it to be crystal clear in between, and I don't want it to be crystal clear, because it helps diffuse any hot spots from the strip lighting that's going to be used to light the chiller grill. But that's basically it. That's all it is right here. Just go in here and just remove the paint. And just clean it out. It was actually a heck of a lot easier than just trying to deal with all that's, trying to mask these thin ribs. But if you want to mask the ribs, be my guest. Go ahead. Have fun. But this way works good for me, so it may work good for you. Of course, you got a heck of a time cleaning all the junk out. And yes, I put the clear adhesion promoter on both sides of these chiller grills, and both sides because the outside, of course, gets dark painting, and on the inside, I'm going to end up, like I said, I'm going to spray Tamiya blue on the inside. But before I even spray that blue, kind of need to have the strip lighting in one of these nacelles just to mock it up and see how intense it is, because the more layers of blue I put on it, the more deeper it's going to get. And I got to know how many passes I went so I can make both sides even. That's the hard part. With any transparent paint you're working with, basically more layers you put on, the deeper and darker it's going to get. Just saying. This is pretty much done right here. I don't know if you can see it, but maybe if I just peel a little bit of it back. There you go. Yep, that's how it should look. So that's all it takes to do the chiller grills, other than put on each coat, which I'll end up showing you each coat as I go through. The other thing I'm working on now is also the RCS thruster fantails, which is, you know, this little guy right here. So what I got to do about that is pretty simple as well. Let's move some of this crap out of the way. Got a yellow SMD, an 0805 out of the Tenna control kit. I'm not going to be using the glass like just the others. I'll be using the solar res. As far as this goes, I'm not going to go ahead and spray all the light blocking on the inside. I'll just do it on the outside. It just makes gluing all this easier and this to stick easier. Now, as far as how to aim the SMD, because there's going to be 4 exits of light, basically. There's going to be, we have this hole here, which will basically be on the bottom. You have a light coming out this way, and the other piece goes on top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, but you have one little LED just to go from 4 directions. So I'm basically going to put it right here, kind of point to the corner, and close enough to this so it'll be bright enough to come out this way. And I'm going to attach it with some medium CA glue. So let me just get a little dab, just a little, the smallest drop as I can. There you go. The tricky part is keeping this orientated. I'm going to get my zip kicker ready. Make sure I'm happy with the alignment. Make sure it doesn't roll on me too, that's the hard part. Plus these 2 wires are like human hair. Okay, up there. Give it a few seconds, only because I do not want it to move, because this thing is like I said, it's like a human hair. Okay. And I'm going to make it come, the wiring come out like in between both of those pins. Of course, I don't want to try to tug on this too tight because these wires are really brittle, really thin. So I think right about there's good. Add a little drop of glue to lock the wires in. Okay. Okay, no, that's not good. Well, there's still some zip kicker residue in there. Let's get it in there. I better kick it one more time. Somehow the negative wire didn't attach. Alright, now want to go ahead and model glue these two together. And yes, like the other stuff, it's been pre-cleaned and other stuff. I have a little bit of a problem here. What is it? Oh. This is where I actually have to clean up the model glue real quick because I see some of my CA is in where the channel of this is supposed to go, so I gotta clean that out carefully. Hopefully I don't cut the wire. Might just, let's see, what can I do? Yeah, probably should do this. This is like surgery. Hey, but hey, the black wire lifted it up again. So, I wonder. You know what I can do? I can cheat this part. Screw it. I'm going to actually cheat it. You'll see what I mean in a minute. On this piece, there's a lip right here. That actually goes on the inside, so I can just kind of eyeball where it's at, where my little glue nub is, and just kind of hog it out a little. Fit. I need a little bit more work. I do. This end. Remember, your kit probably won't do this. Mine did, because that was an Okay, we're getting really close. I need a little more all the way to the end, not too much. Believe me, the next one, that's not gonna happen. Okay, it fits good now. Now it fits good. So let's re-glue some of this. Here, and that should do it. Now, some excess to make that part easier. Line everything up. Tape it tight. And by the way, I did test this LED off camera, so I know it works. As far as these goes, I'll take care of all the light blocking and stuff on the outside. I just got to make sure I plug in those little openings for the RCS thruster. So basically that's set to go. So that, I guess I'm gonna have to wait for that to set up, and maybe what I'll do is I can get set up for. I have to actually coat this white. I need to actually, thinking, you know what? No, because if I coat this white right now, I won't be able to touch this kit for days. So, but even though that has to be done before all the other electrical, I guess what we could do is, there are some parts that still need to go on, like the front, this piece over here and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and prep all that, and I guess we could attach some of the stuff that could be attached, and then we'll coat white, and then it'll be a couple days for me. But you'll see the rest of this happening. So, right back. I'm working on the nacelles here. What I'm trying to work on is how my Raytheon lighting effect is. What I'm kind of learning is that there is many different ways you can do Raytheon lighting. I was experimenting with different methods. First, I was experimenting with airbrushing. Just, kind of leave an open oval with the fade on that. My problem with that, this is just for me, it was just, no matter how low and weak I got my air pressure or whatever, just try to be like a little fine on the oval, it was still covering too much, and it just didn't look right in the end. So then after that, I tried a different method, and that was, well, basically taking basically it was already covered in black and just kind of taking almost like this, but more paint. I was kind of using a con swab and getting it wet. Since this paint in here, I'm using like the craft acrylic, so it's water based, and basically kind of rubbing and sanding, almost like sanding away with a watered Q-tip, trying to give it a little bit of a fade, clean it up, washing away. But with that, I still wasn't liking how that looked. Another method I try to do is, because one of the things I'm trying to recreate is having like the outer edge with a little bit of a fade. So I tried using like a small foam brush with the smallest tip you can get, and just dry dabbing just a little bit on the edge of black, just to maybe create a little bit of spots. That was a little bit difficult to work with. I didn't like that either. One of the other methods you can do that I didn't go ahead and try is just go ahead and cut out, mask off, and the shape you want, and put it in and just paint over it. My problem with that is having that very distinct hard line in my mind. But what I end up settling doing is, after I kind of cleaned off the area of my previous attempts, I just went ahead and used like one of these black paint markers, kind of you shake up with a fine tip, and just kind of traced out my shape, whatever, cleaned up on the outside, and put a couple like almost like dagger strokes or whatever on the very ends, so when you flip over, it looks like a fade back here, but a little bit of a hard on the edge. Because you also got to think about is not making a fade, like a total fade all the way around the whole edge, because it's a spotlight. It's kind of like spotlights have a defined edge, a little bit of a fade, but not too much. And that's what this is. It's not being lit up. basically they're not going for the look of, hey, someone put a lamp outside. They put a spotlight on it. Realistically, it was a dental mirror. But doing it like this kind of gave me very close to the effect I wanted to look. And, you know, as you go, you know, kind of always, you know, test on, you know, see how it looks as you're painting it. It's like, okay, and that's not kind of straight, whatever. So as you go, kind of do it. If I had to do it again, because this whole Raytheon for me is all experimentation. If I had to do this again, what I would do would be to cut out that oval shape. Well, initially. But first I would just get like a piece of tape, more like something dark like electrical tape or whatever. Cut it to the shape of the decal and place it exactly where that's going to go. Shine a light through it, so you're basically doing a reverse Raytheon. Either take your cutout mask or do it by hand with one of these paint markers. Trace around where you want to go, so you kind of have, so you know where to cover, and then work on it from here. You know, be a little artist. Do your light block in, cut your oval, do little dagger strokes to kind of recreate a fade. Remember, it doesn't have to look nice and pretty in here. You never see in here. But, you know, get your shape, get your fade, and then flip over and test it. And then after when you're done, you know, like what I'm doing here is like, I'm just light block. I'm putting the white in here to give it more reflectability because, you know, when you put your base coat out here, it's gonna dull up the illumination a little bit. And of course, more base coat, the more it's gonna make it more solid. So that's something to think about too. Back here, you might want to go really light on your base coat. The rest of this, you know, who gives a but here you need to not bury too much. So that's where I'm at with the Raytheon lighting. I'm also thinking about doing is, a lot of people like to use like one LED for in here, basically have it mounted in the middle. You know, that's fine if you want to do that. I'm thinking about just cutting a piece of the strip light in the smallest that I could and putting it somewhere in here, because I think I'm really going to need to have this really bright in here just to make sure it pops through here. So I think I'm going to go that route. I'm going to experiment, because at the same time, just to make sure it works, on one set of these, I'm actually going to go ahead and just do a light base coat just over here, just for experimentation purposes. So that's where I'm kind of standing on this. So I'm going to go ahead for me, and I'm just going to go ahead and get a base coat on here for that experimentation and start experimenting on which light do I want to go. Do I want to go LED or do I want to go strip lighting? Let me talk to you. So I, of course, like for the last cutscene, kind of discussed the Raytheon. So I've already kind of, let me move this mess. Oh, this ain't the one. I've already did like a, just in this area, a light base coat on there, and I already have my my lighting for the Raytheon. I decided to use the double density bright white strip lighting, and I glued a piece of sprue so that way it's kind of floating in the middle, just underneath where it goes, so kind of gives like that up effect in theory. So I'll plug it in, kind of show you what we got here. Don't be surprised if this thing comes undone. There we go. Now it's gonna be tricky without this thing falling off. Kind of hard to see it, of course, you know, with my bright lights on, but even the light back there kind of allows it to go through. This right now is run at 9 volts, which is the minimum that the antenna control boards can go. The max is 12, so this is 12. Here, maybe if I just do that. Oh, good, that one shut off, so that way kind of easy to see. That's 12 volts, 9 volts. So that's what it kind of looks like. right there, and put the back on it, it's the same. And like I said, over here is just one easy base coat of the white. So, and of course now you don't see it, but yet it's still on. So that's where that one is. So of course I went ahead and kind of did my pre-wiring of the nacelle. I have, let's just go through it. Of course, this whole description of the Raytheon. Back here I got the strobe with a white 3mm and double density strip lighting, kind of a little bit longer than possible, but I just want to make sure there's no dead spots at the end, so I just made sure I got maximum length. What else do I got here? Okay, going to the front, I have a blue 5mm LED, and I kind of bent the wire so it's almost like a spring, because there is a, let me pull it out here, the actual crystal piece is this small little doohickey right here, and the way it's going to go in is that it's going to set down through this hole, and it'll just line up where the tip of it just touches the crystal, and it's perfect. So that's where this one sit. And over in here is a 5mm warm white LED that illuminates this, gives a little bit of a beam that way. And then I got a 3mm white LED for one of the spots over here. And also for the opposite end, I have the other spotlight over here of another white 3mm LED. That has to be tied in when that gets assembled, final assembled. The only thing I haven't put on here yet is the fan tail piece that goes right here, and that has yellow, I think it's an 0805 yellow SMD through there, and I have to eventually put a small hole through here to come out and tie in the positive to here, and then the long negative out to here, and that one will be set. But for this video, for this part of this video, we're gonna go ahead and pretty much do that. So might as well just keep this as a reference. And of course, I like to start this by going from front to back. So let's make sure I have all my stuff. Basically just need a CA glue and some zip kick. So for the rear strobe, it's a 3mm LED. It's a bright white. Kind of give it a little fold like this. And the way I'm going to do this one is kind of give it, make it fold up a little bit. Basically, I'm gluing this part here. I'm doing that first, because I don't really want any CA end up on the tip of the LED, so that might give it too much diffusion, even though I'm all about the diffusion. So let me get this in here just to start it. A sec. Okay, so that's in there. Now that, because that's in there, it's kind of it helps hold the LED, so I can give it like its final little like adjustment or position where I like it, which I like it right there. So where the tip of it is just hanging out, and now I'll go ahead and put a little bit of the CA onto the LED. That. That anchors it, the tip of it in place, and then from here it's kind of like locking wires in place. Of course, trying to keep it out of the way of the Raytheon lighting. That one's in there. Kind of gluing the wires to the little post that's in the middle of this nacelle. You know, that holds the two pieces together. So I'm kind of gluing it, you know, like on this post here, but not where it slips through, but just below it. And then, of course, bringing it down this way. I always like to look back at what I just did as a little bit of a reference. Okay. So those are set. Now the strip lighting. The strip light can be a little bit of a pain. But I'm putting my strip line, I'm gluing it on this bevel here, so it kind of angles it towards the chiller grill a little bit, but more like if you're imagining it pointed down just below it. Basically, it's going to be reflecting off anywhere. And I already did kind of put it up against the chiller grill after I've already sanded the fusion. I don't really see any hot spots, so that's good. That's the one thing I'm definitely trying to avoid, is the hot spots. Force it, kind of like working from the middle out. I'll just put in little bits here and there. So I don't want this strip lane to eventually come off anywhere in the future. Front end wants to curl up, so I gotta hold that down and hit that one real hard. And if you're quick enough while you have wet sea on here, you can take a dab of it in another spot and it'll give it a free reactivation, so I like to call it. Now the rear of it, I'll give you 2 in 1 stone by locking the wires together too. So that's basically this set of wires minus the RCS thrusters. So one of the things that has to be done, I gotta heat up my soldering iron, is to minimize the positive wires because they can be tied in together. So I'm just gonna shorten them up. Use that for something else. Plus I have to tie in with this to the RCS thrusters anyway, so that's why I'm not doing a long jump of wire to go out to here where it's going to go tie into the cells itself. twist together. Until my black wire is short. I think it was actually meant for this wire. Yeah, it was. Huh. So I'm going to need to extend that length while I'm thinking about it. Actually, this one is meant to go easier. Just got a fresh piece. My little, have that on standby. Need it just to extend the black wire, but we're just going to do this. Alright, so that's tinned, so I don't have to worry about these splitting. Now this guy, because of the goof, the LED is the same, so I'm not like, wasn't worried on, oh no, it really fucked up. No, it's okay. I guess I'll just do it this way. And then I'll just heat shrink that. Okay, so that crisis is averted. Other than I need to add a little bit of heat shrink to that one right now. New wire. Alright, now we're back in business again. So it's time to start locking things down, at least on the negative wires. Of course, need to keep it out of view of the chiller grills. This one. This here. Alright, this is how the rear end is looking. Of course, I didn't lock in the red positive wire only because, like I said, I still have to tie in the RCS thruster to it. And I gotta tie in the front half and make it all one wire to out here, so just leave that there. Now we can focus on this front half. So I think what we'll do now is, because it's easier while it's a little bit out of the way, is to deal with the blue LED for the crystal. The way I did that is I kind of put my finger on it and kind of folded it right there, just to give it like maybe 3/8 of an inch, whatever, a little spring up action, and then back up again, where it's almost like a little hook, whatever, and then fold it back down this way. And you're literally putting it right to the kind of like right smack where it needs to go, like right on, almost like right into where the chiller grill is. Not the chiller grill, sorry. The blue crystal thingamad, crackhead, whatever. So, but now I need to kind of get it set in place. So I'm gonna throw in some CA, where I'm kind of gluing the resistor where the resistor is on it, and a little bit more on top of it. Because at this point I can't have it move. I kind of need to lock this in pretty well. So now to make sure is to take, you know, your piece and just kind of put it in and hold it down and just kind of tweak and align it where it needs to go. Make sure it's dead center, and then you should be fine. Pull it out. If you want to reinforce it a little more after you've kind of did that, be my guest, which I am going to do. And because of that little fold here, it gives it like a little bit of a springy action. So when you put that piece in, you know, it gives it a little bit of flex, but it'll bounce back up and make sure it hits the center of that clear piece. So it works like a good lens. Discover that by accident. Okay, now this is the warm white LED. I want to test just to make sure, but I'm pretty positive. Yep. Now this one, I would love to have it in the front, in the middle, but I think that's going to be just too much in the way. Actually, it will be because of there is a piece of the clear plastic that goes in front of it. I could put it like this way, but I just don't want to do it that way. That's just me. So, the way I'm going to do it, the way I have it kind of set, is I'm going to go and kind of aim it downwards. And what I mean by downwards is basically from the top pointed down. But I need to lock it, and I need to look at my other one just for reference, only because it'll basically make a beam, and I want my beam to be exactly identical as the other one. To make sure, it's just look at the other piece. And on this part, I'm actually gluing where the LED needs to go. Confirming and zapping. Now lock it down. So this guy right here is how I want it. So now the next one is the spotlight, which is right here, which was meant to go there for the strobe, but you know, it's the same LED, just have a longer wire. Actually, I'm sorry, it's right here, which I'll use on the other piece. But for now, we'll just do this. This one, I'm just making it just a little bit of a bend here, like that. And then another one, so it looks like this. You know, like that's not the way to go. Just a little bit down. A little dab of CA just on the edge of the hole, but not on the hole. Now that I'm holding it, now I gotta that. Unfortunately, trying to aim this thing perfectly is, I don't know, it's gonna be next to impossible unless I had a way to set this up into there, but you would have to have the saucer already kind of built and this in half, so it is what it is. And these spots are going to be close to the saucer anyway, so it'll probably hit what it wants, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. I know I'm trying to be perfect at much of this as I can, but some things, it is what it is, you know? Okay. Now it's time to kind of lock these wires down. Telling you, this has actually gone quicker than the first one, because the first one I had to figure it out as I go. And of course I had to make these wires solder and all that stuff. Okay, so we got a little bit of a lockdown. Now I'm tying it, I'm going to eventually tie in my warm exterior warp nacelle, little warm white light, to the spotlights over here, because this light is not, there's none of it on the board for this. So just letting you know. Now, even these up. And then solder these three together just like the rear, because I got to tie in the other spotlight on the other piece, because there's two spots per nacelle right next to each other. And the hard thing is I know they're aimed different, but, well, they're supposed to be aimed different, but it looks like the way this kit is, they're actually pointing in the same direction. Lock these three together. I think a little chunk of solder fell on my knuckle. And then these two black ones need to be joined together at the hip as well. got to tie into the other spot on the other piece, but that doesn't happen until we have assembly of the nacelles. So I can mirror and put these two together. In case you're wondering why I don't have the RCS thrusters already on here and ready to be wired, because, well, I painted them white and they're still drying. So, can't really do anything with that until they're drying. So that part's on hold. That's together, that's together. I just need to a little bit of a lock on this bundle right here, right there. And that's the wiring for this part of the nacelles, which is most of it. I don't know if I showed you how this warm white effect is going to look, but I'll just go ahead and show it to you anyways, just because I want to. We'll just see how this stuff holds. Hopefully it won't drop anything. Kind of hard to, there you go, that's a better way to look at it here in the shadow. Yeah, so that's how it's going to look. Needle torpedo. So that one on this one is done. And the other one is, you know, just basically it looks like that. No big deal. So that one I have drying because that was part of the test piece of the, I painted two of the rear ends. So anyways, I'll do that one later, but that's all is left, other than got to go ahead and paint some black over the bulbs for light blocking, just like I've done, you know, on this one. And then I guess the next thing to do is starting to customize these chiller grill pieces. So the next step is really kind of getting these ready. Both sides need to be painted. This side needs the Tamiya blue because this strip lighting is white. And then, of course, in case I didn't mention it before, I probably have why I chose white instead of blue, is because if these were blue and there was a weird whitewash somewhere and it just leaked somewhere, like maybe out to here, you'll have blue shown out of some places where you don't want when the chiller grills are on. But if this is white and most of the other stuff is white, you really won't notice as much. So that's why I choose to actually make this transparent blue on the backside. So this will be blue. This is the only thing that needs to be blue. Other than that, which is already blue. And on the front of it, I got to do my actual chiller grill color, which is a really dark gray, almost to the point of black, but not like this. And then it gets like almost like an iridescent purple, a little lightly. So when we get to that, I'll show you what I'm trying to replicate. And then got to seal this up with clear, and then I could pop it in the thing, and then we could almost assemble this thing. So that's what's coming up next. Here we go. And now jumping into the future. There's something I want to talk about, not necessarily to this build, but something I just saw on YouTube with somebody else's build that just basically happened. I just watched the latest video put out by Spruverse. Apparently he's doing one of these as well, and it was basically the ending. He got everything all done. You know, put the entire ship together. It basically it was complete. Plugged it all in, and he's got one hole nacelle not working. His secondary hole's not working. Shuttle bay's not working, and the whole thing is built. In this video, he obviously doesn't know why. Possibly a short somewhere on the inside. Obviously, I don't know. But obviously, it's something involving with the wiring somewhere. It could be from the board himself that he's got in the base to somewhere in the jumbled mess. His wiring is jumbled mess, just kind of like how mine is. Which brings me to the point on this build, doing these ones with lighting like this. It is a very intricate. It's a mother deal. It's really not easy. And it's so easy to get lost in the mix, and one little thing could screw it all up. Just like my interior lighting on the neck, on how I made a mistake on that one too, which, as I pointed out, for probably doing another build like this for anybody else, add one extra wire into each section as for a redundancy, just in case. That was something that I learned. But like I've been doing on this project alone, is to, you know, always check your wiring with each little step you go, no matter how many times you got to plug it in. Even for one of these, as you're setting it in, plug it in. As you're gluing it up, replug it in. Everything, just make sure it works all the way until you're all locked in and you know nothing is wrong. And as I was doing that, as I'm talking about this and preparing for this part of this video, because, you know, off camera, I like to do as far as these ones go, since there's two, I'll do one so I know how to do this one to show you. And I even made that mistake, even thinking about what happened on Sprue versus Channel. I went to glue this one in because I know that I've tested this before. I knew that this thing worked. Went ahead, glued it all in, got it all wired, resistored and everything. And then I went to test, and sure enough, it didn't work. And I ended up finding the problem, though, is at some point during the installation today, because you got to remind you, on these little SMDs, these 0805s and any ones like it, these wires that are like human hair thin, they can break very easily, and that's what happened. It broke on the inside. There was no way I can salvage that LED. Especially in this type groove in here, being CA glued in, there's no saving it. Long story short, I basically had to destroy the LED and drill it right out through the open ends. And honestly, I don't even have any more yellow SMDs. I was using the ones for the Control kit. And usually he'll provide like one extra, and that one extra, I don't know what happened, but it's a lot dimmer than all the other ones, so I chose not to use it. I don't know if it was on its way out or it's just going bad, but anyways, I'm without a yellow SMD, but I have warm white SMDs that I've got separately, so I just took that and used dipped a couple of times in my yellow transparent paint. It's still more, the actual yellow SMDs provided is got a little more orange amber look to it. As far as the one that I made, it looks more yellow. But needless to say, I already installed it, and I'm just gonna go back and I'll probably make, like, using some red transparent and some yellow, make a little bit of an orange tint, and I'll probably tint it from the inside out. Go as I go, just you know, as I got both of them next to me as far as comparison with this one after this one is installed in. And then I should be able to color match that almost no problem. But again, emphasize on when it comes with your wiring, each step, always go back, retest, test, check all the time. Because once this, you don't want to get to the point where you have this thing all 99.9999.3% put together, and you're going to plug it in and whack. You're basically building your Enterprise A from the motion picture is about to become the self-destruction of the Enterprise of the Search for Spock. So now, okay, now got that off my chest on this. Let's go ahead, and what I want to do is actually install this thing. In case you want to know what the heck this thing's in there, it's a little rubber plug that we use at my work for powder coating. Many different sizes for plugging in holes and stuff where you don't want powder coat or paint to go. So I have this in there basically to block the face off the SMD that's in there from paint. I just kind of left it in there. So what I need to do first is we've got to remove a little masking tape that I have here from the adhesion promoter and this rear base coat test. I just wanted to keep that clean there. I mean, yeah, I could scrape all that off, but that was just more easier. See, I even have my wires locked in up to this point, but it can break from right here. So obviously it did on my other piece, and did fix it, but don't want to do it again. But if it happens again, at least I'll be able to match up the color, because I don't have to do the same SMD trick. So I see my wires coming out here. I'm just going to drill a small hole right in front of it. So I'm trying not to press on the wires as much as possible. Let's drill that through. Try to take a look on the other side, see where it's at. Okay. It's kind of a little bit under my sprue here. It's going to take a little bit of fishing. My plastic drilling junk in the channel here. Let me make sure that nothing's in there. Alright, I got it close as I can, so I'm not going to have a bunch of jumbled wires, because I got to tug a little bit through, but carefully, because I don't want this one to break too. So I'm adding some glue, model glue, which I have, since it's all there. Little pick action here just to kind of help spread it around a little bit. But tug my wires as I go just to make sure it's fed through. Here wants to pop up, so I'm going to have to tape it down. Other than that, rest of this seems to sit in fine. Okay, now like I said before, test, test, test. So give me wiring. Negative and positive. I made this little doohickey with a resistor and a wire. Since this little SMD doesn't have a resistor on it yet, I can see that it works. I don't know if you can. Yeah, because it's going to pull right out, but it works. Thank God. So now I need to add a resistor to the positive wire. So kind of get a little set up for soldering. Normally I would have like a little less wiring, but as far as like, you know, I like to shorten my wires as much as possible, but just for this one I'm not going to, just because these little human hair wires are just such a pain to deal with. Plus, because if something just happens to not go right, I can always move a little wire and just keep on going. Tug. Always make sure you give it a little tug so you got a good connection. Back in, now I gotta give it another red wire. Luckily for me, I just go into my little cutoff scraps because I only need such a little piece. That's where I save them. Plus, I have the Reliant and Enterprise 1000 kits to do, and I'm sure I'm going to need little wires for that because it's not 350. Both. And we get a little bit of piece of heat shrink right here, just what I needed. Cover my resistors. And now for the negative needs to be turned into an orange wire because that's what it is on the board. So again, going into my little thing of scraps here, just gonna go pull off an orange. I got one right here, but I need to see if this is kind of big. Let me see. Yeah. I'm just adding. The reason why I'm just adding an orange just so it lets me know, like, hey, this is what it's supposed to be. Matches up to what I have coming out of the pylons. But in this case, I also have 2 oranges. Go figure. And 2 blacks, so I gotta tag them later. These really thin wires are so hard to twist together. Permanently connected. Now I need a piece of heat shrink for that. And again, test. Make sure there is no bad connection. These wires are so thin, it's kind of hard to test, but it still works if you can see it. I don't know if you can, but it works. So that's good. Now I feel more comfortable anchoring it down. Need to lock the wires from the back so they don't pull out like what happened to my other one. I'm gonna add some glue. Right here's a good spot. Not give it a lot of tension. Hold this down. This is going to be kind of hard to see, it's almost 3 hands. Tap that quick. Yeah, so one thing with these thin SMD wires is, you know, don't put a lot, try not to put like little to no tension on it. Give it a little bit of slack as you go, because they are just so thin. It is just downright ridiculous. kind of, since this back end is now all wired up, what I want to do is just give it a little bit more length to come close to this one, but not exactly tie in yet. So let's see, about here is fine. And just so you guys are not screaming at me, we'll test it again. Just because I was fumbling with the wires. I see light, so it works. Yippee yippee, okay. So I think you should do a test of everything on this part of the circuit, because I've just joined all the other positives together. So let's make sure my main one works. Alright, RCS works. Chiller Grill works. Rear Raytheon works. Strobe works. Alright, so I know everything over there works. Can lock that one in. Need more heat shrink. So now the wiring for this one is actually just about all done, other than when it's time to sandwich the other side together. Got to add the one wire to the strobe over here and over here, and well, not the strobe, the spotlights and all the other junk, and then tie the positives together from there. Only reason why I'm not doing it yet is this over here, even though I could and I probably should, but it's just another wire to go to this and that, and then this. I'll try to actually think about that when I get to it. So really the next thing I want to actually work on is the chiller grills, because I can't really sandwich these things together until those are in place. So got to go ahead and paint those up and get those sealed up, and then they got to dry, and that's what we're about to do right now. So what I've done is I went ahead and sprayed the back of these with the Tamiya transparent blue, and I just kept spraying and holding up to a light till I got to the desired effect that I liked. So this is kind of like what it looks like right now. I have one already, of course, you can kind of just resting in there. Of course, I'm not going to just go ahead and glue everything all up like all super duper, but just for demonstration purposes, go ahead and light it up. Hopefully I have the right orange light, and of course things don't grip for these wires are super thin. There we go. I hope you can see that. Well, the connection over here sucks. Here, let's kill that. Oh, you. It's only happening in here. Here, baby. Yeah, let me kill that light. I got a lot of lights going on here. Let me kill some of them too. Oh, you bastard. There, how about that? Kind of the whitewash down here is not really helping for purposes, but yeah, I like this blue. So cool on that front. So now we can deal with the final color for this. Carefully take this back out. Like I said, it's only just resting in there. So even though this has black, but it's the light block in black, I made my own color for this. I actually call it nacelle black, which is basically, it's flat black, but it has like, but it's kind of toned a bit with the very, very dark gray that I use for the photon torpedo launcher and yeah, that black. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually put this in my airbrush. I mean, it still is on the black side, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this all shaked up very well, and then we'll airbrush it. Then we're gonna have to scrape it out again, and then you gotta go for that kind of like that weird violet iridescent effect on it. So next thing you're gonna see is these things black again. Yippee. Now they've been painted what I call nacelle black. The ribs have been scraped out. So the next thing left to do, other than just take some air to it, make sure there's no little bits of whatever from scraping it off, and going to make custom little, not really iridescent, but as you can see right here, that this thing is supposed to have like kind of like a a purplish look to it when you look at it in certain lights. So I'm going to recreate that actually using the blue Tamiya and the red Tamiya. Going to mix them up a little bit, red and blue make purple. So I'm going to do that and just kind of dust it on there till I get the desired effect that I want, and you'll see after how it looks after I do that. Right. Now, so I did my little mixture of the blue and the red Tamiyas, gave me a purple. I went ahead and coated over my little special, I call it nacelle black. And then I went ahead and did like a a satin clear. And this is what we got here. You could almost see the purplish on it. Hopefully just like the way it looked in the motion picture. I think it kind of does. Just it's a little bit shinier than expected, but I think I'll keep it like that. So the next thing to do is kind of get these locked into place, and then hopefully by then we can kind of like starting to put the nacelle together, and then we can probably paint it and move on to something else. It's time to sandwich one of these nacelles together. Like I mentioned just previously about testing wires and all your stuff, just completed the entire test. Wires are all locked in. Everything is good. Everything is fantastic. edges are cleaned, because at this point, you know, there's no return. I also want to mention, before you get to this phase, the couple things you should put in before you sandwich it is, obviously you have to put in the chiller grill. When you do that, I'm using canopy glue for the chiller grill, and this little piece of glass that goes for that one light that comes out on the other side of the chiller grills. But I would suggest gluing it and set that overnight before you do this, because as you work with this thing, your tendency is going to want to grab it, and you're going to push this right out. And canopy glue takes a while to set up. So I suggest, just, glue it overnight and plan on coming back next day. That's what I did with this. These have been glued in overnight, so they're pretty hard. But even though, keep that in mind, just try not to squeeze on it. So it's time to actually load up some mono glue. So I'm going to load it up on this one. So I'm going to flip it over onto this piece. And don't put any glue on these three. That's for when it gets attached to the pylons. And you notice I just skipped right here because there's a channel for the glue that's on the opposite pieces where I'll put the glue on that, which is right here. Dump it in there and in here. Put a generous amount in there. There. And then on this one, I'll put some in the hole and around where it goes is the tap of this guy right here. Okay, this is the moment of truth. I already test fitted this. I know I'm going to have mostly of an issue in the front just because of where that one front face Bizarre collector wants to go. It was a pain to deal with, so I know that's going to be my fight. So I'm going to deal with that first, make sure that's in, and then I'll just deal with it as I go. Matter of fact, just because I know it's going to be a fight, I'm just going to tape it and lock it now. The rest I should be able to pop in place. Test fitted so that way I already be prepared, because I got glue and it's going to want to set up. The rest of this should be pretty easy. Just go right in place. So now it's just making sure I'm lined up. Grab a piece of tape just to hold that there. Like I said, trying not to grab on to the lighted side of the chiller grill. necessary steps at the same time as I do this. What I mean by steps is the step in the plastic. Make sure it's not like one side is higher than the other. It means less putty work I have to deal with. Okay, I'm going to stop here at the moment. I'm going to stop there so we can put on these other two pieces. It looks, the way it looks, especially with, let's see if I can show you, with this being like that, it seems like, how are you going to get this thing on there when this thing's like in the way? And then this little 1950s little fin, actually it's pretty easy. If you start like this, going this way, you'll be able to, here, maybe I could just show you this way. Start like this and just slide up. It will go underneath it. If I put the right side in. Oh yeah, that is the right side. It'll slide up in there, like so. And then the other one just slides down and in. So now we just pull it out and set up some glue. But you got to start with this the fin first. Again, slide it in. You hear a click. And then I got to put glue into this little U shape. And this guy will slide right in and slid right in perfect. Now I can go ahead and tape the back end up nice and tight. That's why I waited, because you wouldn't be able to get the fin in until, you know, or at least you can't tighten this up until you get the fin in, and if you have tape on it, it'll just be in the way. So we'll push it out over here, tape that down. So now all I got to do is just let this thing sit overnight, and it should look like this. The only thing that's really left to put in is this crystal piece. I'm just going to wait until this thing is 100% painted. It'll be one of those last little details on it. So as far as these things go, it's time for some putty work before base coat. Yesterday don't mean shit. So now we get to finish this damn thing up. It's all been over 24 hours since this thing has been glued. So one thing we need to do next is there is a photo etch piece that goes back here. It's over here. Let me just cut the little son of a bitch out. It's this little guy right here. Now the way to actually deal with that is, they say, you know, you just put it right on. Well, with this, you have the detail from the kit kind of in the way. You can either just lay on top of it with some thicker CA, or what I would rather do is just sand down that detail. Heck, you can even use, for this case, you can go really aggressive because you're just going to use it just to, you know, you're basically burying all this. This will just speed it up real quick, and it kind of planes this bladder back here. And it also gets rid of that seam up here because it just covers it. This part right here is going to be a pain. But this piece of 120 just speeds it up. Now, the one issue with this piece, if you have this already installed, if you do it the other way where this is last, the reason why I didn't do that is because, well, I'll have extra wire in here and I'd have to try to cram into here. This is just not going to slide in easy down to here, but there is still kind of a problem. There is a gap here anyways, but it's not enough to fit right here. So this is what I did. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this corner off where it goes up and underneath here. Make sure I gotta hold this photo etch part nice and secure. Just remember, these parts are super thin. There you go. So what I'm going to end up doing, it's kind of upside down to you, is you just put it right here, and then I'll just stick the other piece right there and it'll be good to go. So, get out me some CA. In this case, I'm going to use thin CA. Trying to keep this part, to me, level so it doesn't run all over the place. I just want it to sit on top. You know, thin CA tends to want to go everywhere. And I just basically CA'd myself. I may actually have to redo that. No editing starting all over for me. I show you my problems so you can do yours. In this case, I'm going to use tweezers because now I'm dealing with CA on both pieces. So you guys got a laugh out of that. Not going to zip it yet because I got one more piece to put on. So the piece that I cut off, I'm just going to go tuck it underneath here because there's a gap that will allow me to do that. Yep, there's a little nub. Because, you know, I didn't follow it down. I just cut it off real quick to show you until it started. I got a minute. Even though you don't see this part. Better just use tweezers for this. This one's tight underneath it, so I'm just going to actually cut this part that you don't ever see because it goes underneath the damn thing. Too cold. Of course, I'm going to have to see that all over again. thin. I don't really like thin CA. Of course, it's going to dry super easy, but it gets everywhere. That's much better. That's much better. Alright, let me zap everything. So this is what it should look like. Still have to deal with this little gap right here. So I'll show you how to deal with that. Put that away. Just gotta dry up all this C8 nonsense. And there's so much detail right here anyway, so I don't want to get a bunch of putty on it. Looks like I may need a little bit more CA on the end over here. Hold that in. Good. Okay, so to take care of this little gappage here, just grab some masking tape. You literally tape it to your first edge. Then to your second edge. Going to have to trim some of it up. Some of the tape is covering where you gotta fill it in. And then the same on this side. A little bit more. Doing this is basically doing two things. It's keeping the detail of this photo etch clean from putty, and because it's in a kind of in a corner, you put putty in it and you're just rounding the area off, but you're trying to get a sharp corner still, and it's so small you'll be spending a lot of time kind of digging it out. So what I'm going to do is start on the bottom side because it's more easily accessible. So I'm just going to push all this in, and even a little bit more. My goal is to try to get it pushed in enough to where it pops out of the other side. Some more. And in some cases it may not even actually come out, and then you probably have to actually deal with it the harder way. Go a little bit more, try it a couple more times. I figure third time's a charm, but I guess third time is not so much of a charm. So in this case, if it's being stubborn, I'm just going to take my little picking tool and I'm just going to get a little bit like on the tip. I'm just going to try to work it in the little gap. Kind of press it in. Okay, I got it. And then just kind of scrape and clean away on the surface, because it's going to be really difficult trying to clean out like blobs of this in its position where it's at now. Now, you take the tape off gently. You don't want to wait for it to harden and then take the tape off. Just take it off while it's still kind of pliable. Well, pliable as in still kind of wet. This way, what you need to stay stays in there, and what doesn't. So, it should look like that. And there's very little cleanup I would have to do later, because that is a really, that doesn't look fun. So the rest of what has to be done, that's probably like the most major of, like, you know, head scratching, whatever. Everything else is a little bit of masking. I am going to mask both of my chiller grills, this side and this side, mainly here because I don't, with the, you know, doing the putty work, in case any gets on here, I don't want to fight cleaning it out. Plus, when it gets time to start laying base coats and all that other stuff, I don't want to keep burying this fine rib detail. So I'm going to try to preserve that. And of course, you know, I want to protect this anyways, because this is all finished. So might as well just mask all this off, and then it's going to be sanding down any steps, trying to get it pre-flattened, then do all the putty work, and then we'll get it checked for any light leaks, address that issue. And so instead of, like, you know, trying to hire somebody and doing that for me, I'll just have to prove my point by letting you watch one of these. Now this would be a good time to take a dump. So I think it's pretty much ready for some light blocking paint. A little bit, you know, it's a little bit of a bitch doing this kind of stuff, but you know, it's all about the details. So really, it's going to end up looking like this. You know, because after when you're going through all this right here, you're taking away material. You'll tend to have, you know, be transparent right through, kind of like through your seam a little bit. So that's going to happen. But, you know, one of the last things I'm going to do before I do that is also just plug it in every light through the dark and just, you know, look around and try to address any little bit of light leak as possible. Because then after that, this thing will just get its base coat of white, and then it's going to have to sit for a while to fully dry before I can do anything with it. So that would be the next time you see these, they will have their base coat, and we'll be working on all the other paint minus the Aztec. So with that, we're going to end this part of the video right here. And so then while this stuff is drying, we can actually start dealing with the sausage section.